right, let's go straight to the front of the Oz. Australia's preeminent masthead. Fast cash to calm virus storm. And of course, you can see there that big graphic which explains it all, which basically tracks the Standard & Poor's ASX 200 index, which shows a pretty steady sort of acceleration. And then, of course, you get to the epic, the zenith, around 7,162 points on the Australian Stock Exchange not that long ago. And then whooshka, down 19.6%, a drop since the peak. Now, here's the first part. Pensioners, New Start recipients and small business owners are among a range of targeted recipients being considered for one-off cash payments to help funnel money back into the economy and protect jobs under the Morrison government's multi-billion-dollar response to the coronavirus. Scott Morrison will on Tuesday also call on big business to take on some heavy lifting in an act of patriotism by fast-tracking the payment of bills to small business suppliers who are facing a cash flow crunch. Josh Frydenberg, the Treasurer, confirmed that the stimulus package expected to be signed off by the Cabinet Expenditure Review Committee on Tuesday would be substantial, with expectations it could be close to $10 billion. Scott Emerson, this is, well, it's certainly the story of 2020, continues to be the story of 2020. Of course, we have the health implications, we have the education implications, we have the tourism implications, and now we're seeing the stock market implications.
An incredible crash today in the stock market. You know, seeing $140 billion wiped off, 7.3% fall. And now you've got the Morrison government with the Expenditure Review Committee. Look, you'd expect the package will be around that $10 billion. Let's not forget the first Rudd package after GFC was about $10 billion. But that was just the first tranche. It went on and on and on, and it got up to about $40 billion in the end. So the question you're going to ask is this Morrison's first bid? And is it going to get worse and worse? I think what they want to make sure is they can't be accused of doing a Rudd, and they don't want to lock stuff in that continues to spend money when the crisis is over. This is exactly what Rudd did. You remember, they were still building those school halls 3 years after the GFC had finished.
All right. Damien, let's have a look at what some of the experts, and let's face it, the Australian has the best business commentary in the country. John Jury saying, as the stock market heads into bear market territory after panic selling on Monday, the concern is shifting to credit markets. Alan Kohler says the big danger from this crisis is the permanent loss of thousands of businesses that can't survive a cash famine. Judith Sloan says the budget surplus will not be achieved, but there's now plenty of scope to use fiscal policy to deal with the economic damage. Robert Gottliebsen says the efforts China has undertaken to control the virus gives the world a chance of restoring big chunks of the supply chain in a few months. And of course, James Kirby says your superannuation fund will not have reported for February, but it will almost certainly be negative for the year.
Yeah, look, I think that's a good cross-section of many of the various strands of opinion across this issue, because, you know, I think the reason we've gotten into this mess is just the panic out there in the wider community really comes back to just a lack of credible, considered and thoughtful information. And that's what we do in the newspaper game, is that every day we distill the madness of the day and pour it into these news pages in a fashion that gives our readers a perspective that they really aren't getting when they're just responding to some viral tweet or a Facebook video from some less than credible source. So, you know, my advice to anyone who's been panicking through this, and, you know, the toilet paper stuff is just absolutely absurd.
Extraordinary.
Is just, you know, get to a cafe or get down and get a newspaper of any description. I don't care if it's not a News Corp paper, but the papers are where the best information comes from, the best sources, and it's scrutinised and very well written. So, look, the Oz has got this all wrapped up tomorrow. The papers have done a really good job trying to respond to this. As it develops further, I think the best advice is just go to credible sources.
All right, we're going to roll some of the front pages now while the boys speak, because it's important that we get a sense for what tabloids are saying. Corona cash is the headline on the front page of the Courier Mail, an exclusive here by Renee Valaris. A one-off cash payment for pensioners and New Start recipients is on the table ahead of critical Morrison government wargaming to inoculate the economy from the coronavirus. We go to the Daily Telegraph and it says market meltdown, recession fears as virus strips 140 billion from shares. Almost 140 billion was wiped from the Australian share market yesterday as a virus panic. And in reaction to a 30% plunge in oil prices, dubbed Meltdown Monday, the fall preceded warnings of a recession this year. If we then head to the front of the Financial Review, the PM's crisis call to big business. It says here, Scott Morrison says the time is now to sacrifice the forecast budget surplus for economic stimulus, while also demanding big business help pull Australia through a downturn, which he says is politically potentially greater than the global financial crisis. Scott?
Yeah, look, as Renee says in the Courier Mail there, one-off packages, again, as I mentioned a bit earlier, they don't want to get caught in a situation where they spend and they spend and they're spending themselves well past this crisis. So that is what they're really focusing on. I don't think anyone's going to condemn the government for abandoning the surplus now. In fact, I think if they committed themselves to doing a surplus, they would be condemned for doing that now. So the question is, will Frydenberg and Morrison come out and say, look, no, the surplus is gone, or are they going to continue with the rhetoric, so wait until the budget? But I think when they announce tomorrow or the next couple of days what they're spending the money on, how big they are, the question I ask them is, do you expect it, whatever the package will be, reports are an expectation of about 10 billion. Do you expect there'll be more to come?